Good evening. Move closer to the light. Today we will talk about those who look at the world but have ceased to see it. Julian Thorne was the most feared man in the capital's art world. A single review from him in the morning paper could elevate a young artist to Olympus or destroy their career forever. Julian knew everything about art, the technique of the brushstroke, the chemical composition of paints, the history of every style. But there was one problem. He felt nothing. To him, galleries had become morgues where expensive corpses of ideas hung on the walls. He despised Christmas especially, calling it the season of red and green kitsch. He lived in a black and white world of impeccable taste and absolute emotional coldness, until one day, on Christmas Eve, he wandered into a flea market, simply to hide from the falling snow. The market was full of noise, the smell of roasted chestnuts and cheap trinkets. Julian grimaced with disgust as he passed rows of plastic Santas. He was about to leave when his gaze caught on something in the corner, near a cellar of old furniture. On the ground, leaning against the leg of a broken chair, stood a small painting, unframed, a canvas the size of a postcard. There was nothing special about it, just a winter forest at night, snow and a dark sky. Julian wanted to walk past, but he couldn't. The color of the sky. It wasn't just blue. It was a color that seemed to vibrate, a deep, velvet, infinite indigo. "How much?" he asked, not recognizing his own voice. $2, the seller yawned. "Just some daub." Julian threw him a 10, grabbed the canvas, and hiding it under his coat like a thief, hurried home. In his sterile, trendy apartment, Julian placed the painting on an easel under a bright lamp. He armed himself with a magnifying glass. He intended to dissect it, to understand why this scrap of canvas made his heart skip a beat. "The composition is primitive," he dictated to himself. "Perspective is violated. Technique, amateur." But the moment he put away the magnifying glass and simply looked, his analysis crumbled. Staring at that painted forest, he felt peace. Not boredom, not satisfaction, but a deep ringing peace, as if he himself were standing in that forest, inhaling the frosty air, waiting for something miraculous. Julian poured himself a whiskey, but didn't take a sip. He sat before the painting for an hour, 2, 3. He suddenly remembered looking out the window at the first snow when he was 5. He remembered that sense of mystery that had left his life along with his childhood. The painting was a portal. Whoever painted it didn't possess technique, but they possessed magic. They knew how to capture the soul of a moment. The next day, Julian was supposed to write a scathing article about a trendy avant-garde exhibition. Instead, he invited 3 of his colleagues to his home. Art sharks just as cynical and venomous as he was. He covered the painting with a cloth. "Gentlemen," he said, as they settled in with glasses of expensive wine, "I want to show you a masterpiece that could be worth millions." The colleagues prepared to evaluate, criticize, and find flaws. Julian pulled off the cloth. Silence fell. Someone chuckled, about to crack a caustic joke about postcard style, but stopped mid-sentence. Julian watched their faces. First, confusion. Then, an unfocused gaze. And then, the masks began to slip from their faces. The lips of the eternally snarky Martha trembled. Philip, the haughty critic, suddenly loosened his tie and let out a deep, heavy sigh, as if dropping a backpack full of stones. "God," Philip whispered 5 minutes later, "it's so quiet in there." No one argued about technique. No one asked for the artist's name. In this room full of ego and ambition, it suddenly became clean and bright, like inside a temple. Julian never found the author. On the back of the canvas was only a tiny symbol, the outline of a burning candle. He realized this artist didn't want fame. They didn't paint for museums. They painted to preserve the light within themselves and pass it on to another. That night, Julian sat down at his laptop. His editor was waiting for an article on the death of modern painting. Julian wrote, "We looked for art in complexity, in provocation, in price. But we forgot that the true purpose of art is not to impress the mind, but to comfort the heart. I found a $2 painting that is worth more than anything I have seen in 20 years, because it gave me back the ability to feel." Julian Thorne didn't stop being a critic, but he stopped being a cynic. The painting remained with him. He didn't sell it, though collectors offered huge sums. Every Christmas, he places it in the most prominent spot. And when the world becomes too loud, complicated, and mean, he simply looks at that brushstroke of midnight blue, and once again, he finds himself in the quiet forest where anything is possible. Do not walk past simple things. Sometimes there is more truth hidden in a small, clumsy picture or an old song than in all the golden halls of the world. Look for what makes your soul fall silent and listen. Merry Christmas